You need to know how to overcome objections in a sales call. It's one of the most critical skills in your business, because when you get on sales calls, it could be going real good and then all of a sudden they say, sorry, just can't afford it, or sorry, I need to talk to my spouse, or sorry, I'm already working with somebody else right now, or the timing's not right. If you get those sales objections, then you are going to want to stick around for this video, because I'm showing you how to overcome all of them. I'm excited to welcome my guest, Carrie Ledoux, today. She is an amazing mentor and has a really thriving business, and she is getting a little bit hung up on some pesky sales objections that I'm sure you get too. So as I coach Carrie through the process, I know that you're going to be taking some notes so you can know exactly what to say when these pop up. Carrie, thanks so much for being on with us today. I'm excited to diagnose these sales woes. So let's go through your top 3 sales objections you get, and then I'll share with you how I recommend you overcome those.
All right, sounds good. Number 1, the first one, and this is one I think everybody's going to deal with in business, is the I can't afford it objection.
Yes, very common. Okay, I can't afford it. What's number 2?
Now's not a good time.
Now's not a good time. That one, doesn't that one bug you? That one really bugs me.
Yeah, that one drives me a little crazy.
Yeah, I'm like, when is ever a good time? That's what I think in my mind. Okay, number 3.
So my third objection would be I have to get permission from the spouse, the partner, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, okay. Okay, each of these is going to follow a really similar formula, and that is we're going to acknowledge what they just said. Then we're going to ask them a question. Then we're going to get permission to give them some more information so we can continue to keep that door open. So, and I have other videos where you're welcome to go and learn more about that process, but we're just going to jump right into what I actually say when people tell me I can't afford it. So here's how I handle this objection. I say, so it sounds like you're interested in the program, but just concerned about financing. Now I'm acknowledging what they said, but I'm reframing it back in a slightly more positive way, where maybe they hadn't said, I'm for sure interested, but I'm phrasing it and suggesting that they are interested, so that if they are truly not, they'll tell me, well, I'm not sure if it's the right program for me. I'm trying to elicit, is this really money or is it really something else? And then when they say yes, I'll say, okay, well, can I ask you a question? Now, at this point, I can go one of 2 directions. Direction number 1 is I can go towards back to the benefits and values and things that they are asking. Direction number 2 is I can just put money to the side for a minute. So let's go direction number 1. That would sound like this. Okay, so it sounds like you're interested in the program, but just not sure about financing. Does that sound accurate? And they say yes. And then I would say, well, can I ask you a question? If you were to do the program, what do you see would be the biggest benefits? And then they'll start telling me all of the reasons why. And then I'll say, well, it sounds to me like you've got a lot of reasons why this would make sense for you. Do I have permission to brainstorm with you on financing? And then once they have permission, then we can go through the information. So the other option, Carrie, is that we decide to put money to the side. And here's how this one would sound. Okay, so it sounds like you're interested in the program, but just not sure about the financing. Does that sound accurate? Okay, so can I ask you a question? If you were to set money aside and not even think about that for a minute, do you feel like this is the right program for you? And then why? And then we'll go into that and I'll say, well, do I have permission to brainstorm with you and see what we can figure out with financing options? Because I would hate if money was the only thing that stopped you from getting what you wanted. Either of those directions work. There's not a clear-cut answer of when you should go one way or when you should go another. What I would suggest is trying them out and seeing which one flows better for you personally, because I've seen some people do really well with set the money aside and some people do really well with bring the benefits back in. And I think it's just a little bit of a personal preference. So try them both and see where it flows. Now, once we get into brainstorming on money, this is where I used to feel like I had to discount or I had to change my payment options or I had to be somehow more flexible and that it was up to me to figure it out. It's not actually up to me to figure it out. It's up to them to figure it out. It's up to me to ask questions. So the first question I like to ask is, well, when you've done programs like this in the past, how did you take care of it? Or, when you've had investments you wanted to make in the past, what sorts of things did you do? That is very informative because they will say things like, oh, well, I could put it on a card, or, I probably could sell some things and do it that way, or I actually have a home equity line of credit, or even sometimes, Carrie, I've gotten things like, well, I have the money in savings. But it's so funny because when they say I can't afford it, it does not always truly mean I can't afford it. A lot of times what it means is I haven't thought of affording it. And so that asking that question will help you see the lay of the land and figure out if you are able to overcome this objection. One thing I do want to point out with this is if you are pre-qualifying your leads and only talking with the qualified ones, then for the most part, you already know that they can afford it because you have had them fill out a survey or a questionnaire. It's more a question of, are they willing to part with their money? So don't buy the story that they really can't afford it. I mean, we're not probably talking to people who are destitute and about to be evicted and, are drowning in debt. They wouldn't be a qualified lead. So it's more figuring out how to make them feel good about parting with that money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I already know for myself, probably having them to communicate the benefits would probably be something that feels nice and natural and flows pretty easily.
Yeah, good. I love it. Okay, let's talk about timing. In timing, there's really a couple of different options. One is it's really not a timing option, it's a fear option, and they just put things off because it never feels convenient, it never feels easy. They're waiting for the perfect moment. The other is that there are legit challenges and legit obstacles with the timeline. We're going to overcome these a little bit differently because the first isn't really time, the second is actually time. So with the first, the way that this will sound is we'll say, so it sounds like what I'm hearing from you, Carrie, is that you do see the value, but you're just not sure about when is the right time to start. And then when they say yes, I will say, well, Carrie, do I have permission to share with you an experience that I had that I think might be helpful for you here? When I was in college, I was getting ready to make this big decision, and I kept trying to put it off another semester. And I remember my dad giving me some really good advice, and I'd love to share it with you. He said, Amy, all of those reasons why you don't want to do this now will still be valid next semester. So what is it that's really stopping you? And so I want to ask you that same question. All of these challenges, they're real, but it seems like they'll also be real in 6 months, in 12 months, in 18 months, or 2 years. So what you want right now, at some point, you just have to get started with the challenges you have. So what do you think? Is that something that you're willing to do? So that's the way that I would handle that, is a relatable story. There's real power in being able to say like, hey, I understand how you feel because I felt the same way too, but here's what I found. It's the feel, felt, found method. And if you're a newbie, you can even say, I understand how you feel. I felt the same way too when I was in college, but what I found was, or if you're a little bit more comfortable, you can just weave in the story. Now let's talk about the other one, which is they have legit challenges. So Carrie, do you want to tell me what are some of the legit timeline challenges that you hear?
Sure. So two really common ones that I've heard recently are, I just started a new job and I just feel like I need to figure that out. And the second one I hear a lot is, I'm already in another course or program.
Okay.
I'm worried about that and like the extra commitment, and I don't know that I can make it.
Okay. So my first question for you would be, do you want to work with people who are already in another program? I personally don't until they hit the tail end of their next program, because I know that I'm a little bit, well, I'm a lot, and I want their full attention. And so that's my first question for you is, do you want them while they're in another program?
Yeah, I think it depends, because the programs that they can be in, sometimes it's a practitioner training program. Like, let's say that they own a coaching business and they're like learning to be a better coach. Well, it's actually better that they get into the business side of things right now, so they have clients right away when they're done. If they're in another business building program, then that might be a different situation. But I always feel like but you must not be getting something out of that program if
Or
we're
why are we
talking right
talking?
now.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, so here's how we would do that. We would say, so Carrie, what I'm hearing you say is that you do see the value of this program, but you're just concerned about how it overlaps with your current program. Does that sound true? Okay, well, let me ask you a question. What are you not getting in your other program that you would be getting in this program? And do I have permission to share with you how I see these two benefiting each other and where I see that you'll be able to experience greater growth because you're doing them side by side? And then I'll kind of go over those details. So that one is what I would say there. If it comes down to the job one, that would sound like this. So what I'm hearing you say is that, you're excited about what we can do together, but you just started a job and are feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Does that sound accurate? So can I ask you a question? What do you assume that it's going to take from this program in order to be successful? Because a lot of times they're assuming that it's going to be like really super intense, and that's why they can't fit them together. So I would ask that question, and then I would say, well, do I have permission to share with you what it would actually look like? Because I think you're putting a little bit more pressure on it and a little bit more time commitment and expectation than what I think it's actually going to take from you. And then I'll go through and I'll share what that looks like. And then I'll go back to another question and I'll say, so understanding the context, how, if you were to do them side by side, be starting the new job and doing the program, how would you make those work together? And again, I'm getting their brain to start going into that space of positioning two things together that they didn't think could work, but actually could if you can just get them into problem solving. And then I'll say, well, that sounds like a really good plan. I definitely think you could be successful doing it that way. So what do you think? Are you excited about getting, and I'll go back to their goals, are you excited about getting that started now versus waiting 6 months while you settle into the new position? That's how I would handle that one. So the last one is I have to check with a spouse or a partner. I love this one. Here's what I do. I say, okay, so it sounds like you want to run this past your spouse. What do you think he or she will say? Now we're either going to get somebody who is like they'll say yes, we just always run things past each other. And I'll say, okay, great. Well, do I have permission to kind of walk you through what will happen next and how this will roll? And then they say yes, and I say, okay. So what I would love to do is let's go ahead and get your order all filled out so that we don't have to get back on a phone call again. I'll grab all your information, but I'm not submitting anything until you text me back tonight and say we're good to go. Does that sound good? Because if they've already gone through and they've already submitted the order and everything, they are not likely to back out. They're committed. So if they're not sure what their spouse is going to say, then I will share with them a script for how they can present it to their spouse so that way they're going in powerfully and they're asking clearly what they want so that their spouse has an opportunity to get on board. The other thing that I am a big proponent of is, and I do this in the permission piece, not asking your spouse for permission, but asking your spouse for support. Parents and children do the permission thing. Spouses get to do the support thing. So that is really helpful because I'm equipping them with tools to be able to go and have a powerful conversation.
Have you ever actually said that to somebody? The difference between like permission and support, and you feel like that's well received? Is that a light bulb moment for people?
All the time. I have that conversation often, but I do it after I ask for permission. So I'll say, do I have permission to share my opinion on this? And then they gave me permission, so then I can come in and I can be opinionated. And I am pretty opinionated about that. Like it changes the dynamic of the conversation, because if you ask your spouse for support and they say that they can't give it, then what happens is it allows you to be able to come back and say, well, what would it take to get your support? Instead of, they didn't give me my permission and now I'm mad and we're fighting and they're sleeping on the couch. So then the third option is they say, I don't think my spouse is going to be on board. And I'll say, well, why do you think that is? And they'll tell me all of the different reasons. And what will happen is usually a history and a pattern that is going on in their relationship. I find those calls are best to just get on a 3-way call, because it's usually a trust thing that, especially in coaching, they've tried other things before. They've bounced around from idea to idea. They haven't followed through. And that spouse is going to need to be a little bit more enrolled. And I am better at enrolling than the client is. So if I'm not really excited about the client, or I I don't really care if they close or not. I may not offer that additional time. But when I'm like, this client is going to be good, I know we can help them, I will just get the spouse on the call and then we'll kind of go through again and I will overcome the spouse's objections because I'm going to do a better presentation. Does that make sense, Carrie? Does that give you a little bit more clarity?
Yeah, super helpful, Amy. I love it. I feel like these are things that all of us probably will have to work on for a really long time, but having some language, some verbiage, some guidance is key to success here. Thank you so much.
I want your sales to be healthy, my friend. So I've got 2 prescriptions for you today. Number 1, go check out my video on do I need high pressure sales tactics? And number 2, if you haven't done it yet, download my Sales and Marketing Scorecard. It's a great opportunity to really be able to look at the health of your sales and your marketing, and we will diagnose and prescribe exactly what you need in order to get your sales and marketing healthy, thriving, and bringing you all the clients you want. Thanks for being here, my friend. We have been diagnosing your sales woes so that your sales can be sick. And I prescribe that you go watch that next video.